Hey everybody, it's Mimi. Welcome to the world of fandom. Today I will be doing my first review video and I will be talking about The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, the first book of the Folk of the Air series. So the way I'm going to be doing my videos, my review videos, is the first half will be for people who have not read the book before and will be free of any spoilers, and the second half of the video will be for people who have read the book already and will be full of spoilers. So if you haven't read the book, I would only watch the first half of this video, but if you have read this book, then you could honestly just skip ahead to the second part of the video. So another thing is, this book is a little controversial. Some people really like this book and others really don't. So I really like this book, but other people's opinions are different, and that's totally okay. Different opinions start discussions and theories and conversations. So if my opinion is different than yours, that's totally okay, and if yours is different from mine, that's great too. If you are going to review this book and put it down in the comment box below this video, if you're on my blog, then please remember not to put any spoilers. If you do want to put spoilers in it or something with spoilers, then you can always ask me to create a Cruel Prince forum on my blog, and in that case I will get one started immediately, so you can post artwork and OTPs and theories and discussions and comments and reviews about this book for people who have already read this book, and so you can put as many spoilers in the forums as you want. Otherwise, if you were just going to review this book in the comments, then please no spoilers. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about this book for people who haven't read this book already, and I'm going to start a little, like a brief overview of what this book is about for people who have not read this. So basically it's about a girl named Jude who is human, and she has a twin sister named Taryn and an older sister named Vivi who is half fairy. So this is a fairy book. Most of the book is set in fairy. A little of it is set in the human world, but most of it's set in fairyland. It's a little dark. It's not really dark, but it has some dark themes, and it's very political. So there's a lot of court intrigue and spies and kings and queens and coups and a whole bunch of political intrigue and things like that. So anyway, so it's about this girl named Jude and her sister Taryn, her twin sister Taryn, and her older sister Vivi. So when she was 7, her parents were murdered by a fairy, who then felt responsible for these 3 children and brought them back to fairy to raise them as his own. And overall he does a pretty good job in my opinion. But the only thing is, she is human in a fairy world, and fairies look down upon humans. They think that humans are lower or lesser, and they just kind of treat them like they're dirt or lower than dirt a lot of the times. So she grows up feeling scorned and belittled, especially by the other fairy kids who she is tutored and schooled with. And she is bullied by specifically 4 of them, and those 4, I really like a character named Acacia, and I do like Locke, and I do really like Carden, her main bully throughout her school life. There is a character named Valerian who I am not fond of. I think his character lacks depth. The rest of the characters have a backstory, and you learn more about them, but this Valerian is just kind of cruel for no reason in a way, or just like rashly mean and angry about everything. So Jude's rival, Prince Carden, the Cruel Prince, is sort of the entire reason she starts to fight against all the fairies and their thoughts about humans and their reactions to having a human in their midst. So she is, she's a little manipulative. She is human, so she lies, unlike the fairies. And she wants power for herself. Unlike her twin sister Taryn, who is fine being submissive because she just wants to fit in. She doesn't want any trouble. Jude, on the other hand, wants to be better than the fairies, not just be as good, but better. So there's a lot of intrigue, because, like, court intrigue, because she becomes a spy for one of the other princes of fairy. And so it's kind of her story overcoming various obstacles to become more powerful, and she just kind of twists the end of the book to her advantage. And some people don't like that about her because it was just really easy for her to suddenly be powerful, and it doesn't make much sense because she's never had much experience of power. And so it's just a little unrealistic to think that this human girl just suddenly just manipulates and twists the rest of the book to her advantage. So one of the kings, so the main king in this book, is stepping down. So he is stepping down from being the king, and so he is going to crown one of his sons or daughters. And there is a coup that happens, and so everything just kind of gets flipped upside down and twists around, and she has the chance to become greater, and so she takes it. So they're all, I really like most of the characters. I do like Carden and Jude. I love Jude because you're sort of meant to not like her as you're reading the book. She is not really a villain, but she's not the hero either. She's so deceitful and manipulative that you really don't like her, but at the same time you really do like her. If you like Aelin Galanthenius from The Throne of Glass or Leah from The Kiss of Deception, then you will like Jude, but if you do not like either of those characters, then you probably will not like Jude. I do not like her twin sister Taryn all that much, but it's interesting to read about twins because I don't read a lot about twins. It's not as common, but otherwise it's just sort of a great book to read because of all the things that happen and the way they happen. And I love Holly Black's writing. It's beautiful. I love her writing. She does have two other series called Tithe and The Darkest Part of the Forest, which also share characters with The Cruel Prince. It is all about fairies, and there are 4 characters in The Cruel Prince that also play parts in Tithe and The Darkest Part of the Forest. I did not care for those books as much, but the way Holly Black wrote this book, I really loved it. I could not stop thinking about it after I read it. It just sort of was just a shock to read something that was so good. And in previous years, her books have not been fantastic, but I just really, really loved this book. So like I said before, some people don't like Jude because of how easy it is for her to be manipulative and just kind of twist everything to her advantage, even though she has no previous experience with any type of power. If you do not like any stories about bullying because you were sensitive about that, then this is probably not the book for you. There's a lot about that, but I think it works in the book's favor. And like I said, it's dark. It has some dark themes, but it is not like the darkest book I've ever read, and it's not like really bad in any way. So I really, really like it. And honestly, I would suggest it to anyone over the age of 13 or so. And there's not really a love interest or relationship in this book. It's most of the characters hate each other. So it's a little refreshing not to have an actual relationship in the book, because so many books it's like instantly in love, and that just doesn't make much sense, or it's a love triangle, which I cannot stand, like most people. So it's a really, really great book, and kind of a refreshing start to 2018 because it was so good. So overall, it was a great book. I would suggest it to a lot of people. And I really, really do like the characters. 5 stars for me, and I read it months ago. So now I'm going to start the second part of my video, and it is for people who have already read the book before. If you do not care about spoilers and you have not read the book, but you're totally fine with knowing everything that happens in the book before you read it, then that's totally okay. You can continue watching. If you do not like spoilers, then I would stop the video now. Otherwise, just hear everything I've already talked about, but more in depth. Okay, so like I said in the previous section, I really like this book. I really like the court intrigue and everything that happens, and I love Jude because of her power and manipulativeness, because I really like characters like Leah from Kiss of Deception and Aelin from Throne of Glass. I like those kind of characters because you're not necessarily meant to think that they're the hero. You're sometimes you don't like them from the narrator point of view because they're just not actually a good person, but they're a great character. Kind of like villains. Like there are some villains that you really don't like as a person in the book because they're so bad, but at the same time you love them because they are the best character to play that part. So when she became a spy for Prince Dane, I did not like Prince Dane as soon as she opened the door and he was sitting there. Like, there was something messed up about the entire exchange, and right up until he said, except for me, like nobody can control you except for me. I was like, he's bad news. Same with Locke. When Locke suddenly was like kind towards Jude and there was something going on with Taryn, I was like, there's something going on with those two. I do not like Locke. He has some tricks up his sleeve, and I liked Carden immediately. But there are also other characters that I like that kind of resemble Carden, and so his type of character I do not dislike. I really like Carden and all the way up through it. Although I knew what was gonna sort of happen. For those of you who have read A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas, it's sort of the same thing. Pharaoh was totally oblivious to Ryson's concern for her. And Jude, in the same aspect, was totally oblivious to Carden as well, because like when he was concerned that she may have cut herself, and then he thought, oh, she's gonna share some witty banter, you know, between us, and then Taryn was kind of in the way, and he's just like, oh, and she's like, wait, what's going on? Or when he's just like so angry when he pulls Valerian off of her, and he is barely controlling his temper, and she's like really confused, but she just thinks it's part of the game, you know. Or when he waits for the Nixie to leave, when she's in the lake, and then he leaves so that she can get out of the water and not get eaten. Like, there was something about that there, like, even before the end of the book happened, and like I knew that was gonna happen, but at the same time it was like, it's so refreshing that two characters like hate each other so much, you know. Like a lot of books, when there's some rival and then it's just like things get switched around and all of a sudden they're in love. No, at the end of the book they still hate each other, and that's great. And I'm just waiting for the second book because he is going to be so unhelpful and belligerent and just like at the same time warring with himself and trying not to admit anything. It's just, I'm waiting with bated breath for that book to come out, because I have like a whole bunch of scenarios I've planned out, and that's like great, because now before the book comes out next year, I'm going to be really excited to read everything about the book and kind of compare it to what I've already thought about the book. So when the coup happened, what didn't really surprise me, because I thought there was something up with Belkin. There were too many things that just like didn't add up. Like when Maddox was meeting with him in his study at his house, and I was like, wait a second, I thought Jude said they didn't like each other. There were just like too many things that didn't make sense. I really do like Maddox, General Maddox. It was a little surprising because I thought, oh, like he murdered their parents, I'm not gonna like him. But I actually really did. I do like Oriana. She was a little naive, but I did like her. I liked Oak. I liked, honestly, everybody except for Dane and Valerian. I did like Locke, but I knew something was going to happen. Valerian, I think, was a little bland. He didn't have a lot of character depth or backstory, and so I was just kind of waiting for something to happen where he just like showed his true colors and bad things happened, and I wasn't really surprised. So otherwise, I'd rate this book probably 5 stars, and I was like so excited to read it because there's a fairy book, and I love twisted, creepy, warped fairy books. I like The Falconer, I like Cruel Prince, obviously, I like A Court of Mist and Fury, I like The Enchantment of Ravens, even though some people didn't like it because it was so short. So I really like twisted fairy books, anything, you know, cruel or warped. I don't really care for Holly Black all that much. Her Tithe series and The Darkest Part of the Forest weren't my favorite books. For those of you who don't know, Tithe and The Darkest Part of the Forest were her previous 2 series, and they share characters with the Cruel Prince. Roybin, Kay, Severin, and Severin's lover Ben do all play parts in the Cruel Prince, but they have their own series. Tithe is a trilogy, and The Darkest Part of the Forest is a standalone book. I did not care for those books as much because they just didn't click with me. Tithe was a little, a lot of it was in the mortal world, and they're all high schoolers, and there was a lot of cussing, which I don't care for, so it just wasn't my thing. The Darkest Part of the Forest was alright, I liked it at the time, but then I tried to read it 2 years later, and I wasn't fond of it. So, again, Jude is one of my favorite characters of all time, reading about her, because it was so refreshing to read about a character you weren't supposed to like, instead of like, oh, I love this character, but I don't love her as a person, I love her as a character, because she is so awesome. She's like Aelin or Leah, so she is one of my probably top 10 favorite characters. And the book is probably one of my top 10 favorite books. My next video will be my top 10 favorite series or books, and I will talk about all my favorite books. But, so that's my review and sort of discussion of The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. If you like this video or you want to stay in touch and watch more videos, because I will be doing quite a lot of them, then stick around, subscribe, hit like. I have a blog called The World of Fandom that is more like a website. You can come and sign up, follow other people, find new books and suggestions, take part in the forums, and review books. So just hit like, subscribe, and come to my blog and become a member of The World of Fandom. Alright, bye!